So there we go. I just clicked it, so it should be available. All right, I am going to go ahead and start us off this morning as folks are getting in and getting their audio. Welcome. I am Elisa Zig with United for Children, and we are working together today to learn about an opportunity that you can use to try on and try out an observation tool that will be helpful for kindergarten readiness and for you to really be on the cutting edge and leading edge of where we're headed with the state of how to ensure our kiddos are ready for school and how you can be a support there. So we're really thankful for that and thankful for a partnership that United for Children has with the St. Louis Pre-K Cooperative. And I know that Anne is here as well. And she is a key component of this. And then also we have our friends from Mid-America Regional Council, and Giovanna specifically, Giovanna Ross, will be presenting today for your clarity of what we're trying to do and how you can participate. Feel free to ask questions in the chat. We'll monitor that and ask Giovanna questions as well. And then we will also be sending a follow-up email from today to you all so that you have some of the information that we're talking about and going over. So as Giovanna gets prepared, I want to just make sure a couple of final housekeeping reminders. Keep yourself on mute, please, unless you are actively speaking. To do that, hover over your picture and there should be an option to click mute. Come off mute if you'd like to talk, and then we know you're probably eating lunch, so feel free to turn your video cameras on and off. Giovanna, can you take it away, please?
Absolutely, and thank you so much. And it's so great to see some familiar faces and names as you're coming into the chat. And I'm really thrilled to be here to talk about some of the work that we have been engaged in over the last 5 years and more intensely over the last 3 years, and to share the opportunity with our counterparts in St. Louis to join in this work. And so I am Giovanna Ross, and I am the Director of Early Learning at the Mid-America Regional Council. And the Mid-America Regional Council is really a planning organization for the greater Kansas City metro area that really looks at aspects of quality of life for our citizens. And so I say, you know, if it has anything to do with making our life better, MARC is usually at the table. And one of those components that we focus on is early learning. And I always feel really fortunate that early learning and access to affordable quality child care and early learning experiences is an important part of the quality of life for our community. And as you all know, in St. Louis, it goes through fits and starts, right? It sort of ebbs and flows. And so I think we're in the flow part right now. So it's really kind of exciting. And I think as we've been bridging some of the work that we're doing in Kansas City and connecting with St. Louis, I think we have even more opportunity to do that work. So today, we are really going to focus on just talking about this one aspect, the pre-kindergarten observation form, but know that there's so much work that we are able to do as we're coming together and have our voices at the various tables that are being constructed as well as revitalized currently. And so our time together today is really just an overview of why we are engaged in this readiness discussion of measuring readiness, and why we chose this tool called the pre-kindergarten observation form. And then we'll get into what it is and how it's implemented in classrooms. And then we'll focus on how your programs can participate. You've received some of that information already as far as being able to show that your interest in participating. And of course, there'll be time for questions, but do know that as we're moving through, feel free to ask questions. I've asked others to look at it because, as you know, when you're trying to focus on what you're saying, it's hard to keep up with the chat. So you can raise your hand and ask it verbally. You can put it in the chat and we can answer it there as well. And I appreciate you all putting your names and your organizations in the chat so we know who was able to join us today and who else has joined that maybe we didn't know was going to be coming. So, all right. So with that, I also want to say on the call today is Brady Smith, and she is my newest colleague here at the Mid-America Regional Council. And she is a name that if you participate in the study, you will see coming through, because she'll be helping to disseminate and gather information as we're moving through. So we're glad that Brady is here as well. All right, so let's get into it. Why are we going to measure readiness? And, you know, it's an interesting concept because it's talked about all the time, but it's defined in various ways. Not everybody is measuring readiness or defining it in the same way. So one of the things that we sought to do in our region was to really think about how do we have that shared definition of readiness so that we can really provide that snapshot of children's development. We think it's important that readiness is considered as one aspect of a child's development, and this measure is one aspect of that, and that we're looking at both formative and summative readiness indicators. And so a lot of our programs are implementing a teacher strategies gold or the desired results developmental profile to get more of that formative information. And we really wanted to have a tool then that would give us that snapshot and that would have some agreed upon norming around what is readiness. When we are looking at readiness, we are able to set a baseline so we can look at what are some changes that we're seeing over time. It really helps to have a regional approach to readiness and look at it in that respect. We're able to look backward to see what types of experiences children are having before they come into kindergarten, both in classrooms and out in the community. And we're also to look forward. So being able to provide some input to the receiving kindergarten programs of the children, of the skills that the children are coming with, as well as some of the interests. And I think that's that other piece of having that bridge between our early learning and care programs and our K-12 or P-K-12 systems with that common definition of readiness. Elise mentioned the pre-K cooperative. There's a pre-K cooperative in Kansas City and in St. Louis. And one of the strengths that we're seeing of having the implementation of the pre-kindergarten observation form in the pre-K and then the kindergarten observation form in the kindergarten classrooms is that shared language and the shared expectations around readiness. And so when we're looking at readiness, utilizing the pre-kindergarten observation form, we're really looking at that snapshot of development at the fall when they're coming in and in the spring when they're getting ready to leave to go to their kindergarten programs. We're not using the P-KOF to diagnose or label students. If you have concerns about children's development, you would still follow the pathways that you would have done before. It's not a diagnostic tool, nor is it a sorting tool to sort children in groupings. It's really to give that snapshot. And it is not used to evaluate teaching. I think it's really important that we make it clear that when we're implementing a readiness measure, we're not looking at teachers, we're really looking at the development of children. They also can use readiness tools because it is that snapshot to have those conversations with families at the very first part of the school year or program year, as well as to be able to utilize the information to start with your curriculum planning. It gives you that look at where children as they're coming in to programs. So I can't emphasize enough, it's a snapshot of children's development as we're moving through. And so I wanted to focus a little bit on why the P-KOF, and I apologize the graphic is blurry, but it's actually a perfect thing. I don't know if any of you ever played this Match 3D where you're like trying to find all the matches and you're sorting through and you're kicking stuff out or you're moving them over. That's what we were doing about 5 years ago. When I was still with the University of Missouri, Kansas City, I was working with MARC and the director that's in my role at the time around how do we get a shared measure of readiness, because we kept hearing all these questions and concerns from our providers around the disconnect between pre-K and K. Our kindergarten teachers wanted to have something that was valid and reliable, but not cumbersome. And so we came together and they brought all of the tools that they had used for readiness. So the Brigance, the Dial, the ASQ, the teacher-made tools, et cetera. And we looked at them all and said, and talked about what was included. And then we also talked about, well, what do you want to know? And when we were talking about what do you really want to know, what rose to the top was around social emotional skills and self-regulation. What we heard from those kindergarten teachers and some pre-K teachers is that, we can teach them the academic stuff, the letters, the numbers, the colors, the shapes, et cetera, if they are able to come into the classroom and be a part of that classroom fabric. To be able to engage in the classroom. And so we then looked at all the tools that they had brought and said, do any of these do that for you? And they said no. And so we decided, okay, well, let's look at what it would mean to create our own. And we did one and we piloted it. But if you're in the research world, or even if you're not, it takes a long time to get validity and reliability on a tool. So during that time, I was continuing to dig and I came across this tool called the Kindergarten Observation Form that had a pre-K observation form companion. And lo and behold, it really looked at one of the pieces that those teachers wanted, primarily an observational based tool that looks at self-regulation and social emotional development and expression, underlined by that motor development, fine motor, gross motor, and then a little bit of those kindergarten academics, the literacy, the rhyming, the letter recognition, number recognition, shape recognition. And as we looked at that tool, we saw that it met the needs. It was a match to what our kindergarten teachers said they wanted to know, as well as developmentally appropriate in that majority of the items are observation-based, but a snapshot observation. And then it was quick. It was a little bit quick, more readily administered in programs, and it didn't take as much time. The other thing that we appreciated about the kindergarten observation form and the P-KOF is that it had a companion where we were able to gather information from families, the parent information form. And we found that was going to be really powerful because we were going to get more information about the experiences of children prior to entry. What have they done with their families? What are things that they've done in the community? What programs have they been in prior to the administration of the tool? And so we decided that that is where the route we were going to go. And so for the last 3 years, we have been implementing the pre-kindergarten observation form and the kindergarten observation form within the Kansas City region. And the last year in some of the programs in St. Louis as well that are part of the St. Louis pre-K cooperative. All right, I'm hoping the speed is going okay and gives you that background. And so we were thrilled to work with a partner, Applied Survey Research, that is out of California, that developed the tool, the kindergarten observation form, to help us to assess readiness and really look at readiness. And there's 2 components that we utilize to do that. One is the pre-K observation form that is administered by teachers in their classrooms, and then the parent information form. And those 2 together help to give us the snapshot of where the child is developmentally now, as well as, and I'll share as we get into the parent information form a little bit, some predictive ability around what are the experiences that help us to build better systems to prepare children and their families for the kindergarten experience. So the pre-kindergarten observation form is also, and I should say this within where are we now, The state of Missouri is looking at a kindergarten entry assessment for children as they enter the fall of kindergarten. And as that committee was meeting, the pre-K observation form and the kindergarten observation form came to their attention as a possible tool for them to capture that snapshot of readiness at kindergarten entry. And so through that, this fall, and some of you may have heard this, DESE is working with school districts and charters to implement the kindergarten observation form in kindergarten classrooms as a pilot this fall. And so there are going to be kindergarten classrooms across the state that are going to engage in that pilot. Through that discussion with the state of Missouri, there was a real interest by DESE to have the 5 areas of development captured within the form. And so while all these components were a part of the kindergarten observation form and the pre-kindergarten observation form, they were grouped a little bit differently with that self-regulation, social emotional development, kindergarten academics, and then the physical development. Sort of as the girder on a pyramid. Now it's going to look a little different this fall. And I think it's real important that as we are utilizing tools that we stay in step and aligned with what DESE is doing as well. And so it's going to look a little bit different as far as the breakout of scoring, but not different in the administration. And so you'll see that there are 5 areas that are captured that then align with the Missouri early learning standards. And so the language and literacy, cognition and general knowledge, the social emotional development, approaches to learning, and physical development. And you can see the items that are captured within each of those. The piece that I appreciated about the KOF as it was designed is that it was in partnership with early childhood teachers and experts. And so they like to say that it was teacher created and researcher refined, making sure that they were getting the whole view of readiness with a simple snapshot look. Not going into great depth into all the areas, but getting that piece of a snapshot. So there's 20 skills across those 5 areas, and it's been validated against the standardized measures of development. And they've used it in longitudinal studies to do some predictive analysis around 3rd grade test scores as well. So that's sort of those buckets that we have of the pre-kindergarten observation form. I'm going the wrong way. All right, so this is sort of what the front page looks like. It has the basic information about children, about their date of instruction, their start date, their background information, what type of program that they are in. It captures some information about the children's appearance in school. Are they hungry? Are they tired? Are they sick? Are they absent? Are they tardy? And we ask those same questions of the families as well. We do want to gather information if they are on an IEP or if they have a special need. In our training of teachers that are administering the P-KOF, we talk about how to take into consideration children with special needs and accommodations that can be made, as well as for children that have a different approach to learning than maybe what we would be asking them to do. The wonderful thing that I appreciate about the P-KOF is that 6 of the items are teacher-child interaction, and then 14 of the items are done through observational opportunities during those first few weeks of school. There's also some gathering about whether or not the child is an English language learner. This is not an assessment of language. And so during the training, we do talk about being able to assess the child in their preferred language if possible. And so it might be that you have a classroom assistant that is able to administer the tool and gather the information with that child in their preferred language. And so it's real important that we're not assessing language, we're really assessing the skills. So that's the front page. And then the second part of it is then that information around those items that we saw broken out earlier. And so we have the different components. We have the ratings, which I'll talk about here in just a moment. And if they have a little triangle on it, it means that it's language dependent. So if you can't do it in their language, you just want to put that don't know, not observed. And so you can see that there's quite a few that are really based on that language dependent as well. And so what it looks like for the teachers is that there's going to be some items that they are going to be implementing with the children. So there's a score sheet around the counting of the objects, the recognizing letters, recognizing numbers and shapes. However, what I like to share with teachers is that if they're already collecting that information for the DRDP or the Teacher Strategies Gold, you can take the information that you have and you can transfer it to the P-KOF. The key with that, though, is that if a child wasn't doing it successfully, you have to give them that opportunity to perform that skill during the use of the P-KOF as well. There are 4 different areas that we look at in ratings that the teacher will use: not yet, beginning, in progress, and proficient. And as you can see, that rating scale is scaled up based on their ability to perform without adult assistance. So being able to perform independently is our proficient, occasional, frequent, and then cannot perform without assistance. For the observation-based items, there is a rubric that is a part of the tool, that is a scoring guide that helps to guide the teachers as to what the rating should be based on the performance of the children during their time. And when I say performance, that means during their observations, those 14 items, or when they're doing the teacher-child interaction items as well. And so the key piece within this is just around the timing, that once the teacher gets to know the children, the ratings, and gets to know the tool, the ratings tend to go more quickly. And so the PK observation form is done within the first 4 weeks of school. We want to try to assess where they are at entry. And then we do a post to look at where the growth that we saw over time in those classrooms. Both of those at entry can be used for curriculum building. And then you can also use the pre-post look to get some information about just that growth and to have some of those conversations with families as well as the receiving school. And so when the teachers are trained, they get information around the administration, around how to do the ID numbers of the children, how to score. And then I'm going to show you some examples here in a little bit about how to enter the information so that they can get immediate results of the child's areas or development in the various areas. So that's the pre-K observation form. The companion with that is a parent information form. And with the parent information form, we're able to gather information from families through SurveyMonkey, as well as a paper pencil opportunity as well, that we can gather information about things that they do in the home, such as reading books, providing opportunities to play with other children, to where they got information about readiness and kindergarten, things that they do outside of the home, screen time, we capture that information, as well as some of the protective factors, things that they've been concerned about, things, I have someone I can watch when I need to run an errand, those pieces. We also capture information about primary care physicians and dentists as well, because that we know has an impact if they're getting those health visits as well. That information we are able to take, and this is as a systems person I appreciate, we can take that information from the families and then the information from the P-KOF, and we can start to look at some predictors of readiness. And so this is an example from one of our earlier rounds around the things that we saw that predicted readiness. And, you know, things like health and well-being of the child, the healthier they are, the better the readiness, the resilience of the child, as well as the resource use. So that's things like going to the library, to the zoo, to the museums. And what we're doing with that information is then working with our partners that we have within our partners of quality that are representing the libraries and the museums to then think about how do we get more access. So if we know that resource use impacts readiness, how do we get more access ahead of time as well. So those two forms together is what is going to give us that information about readiness at the moment, and then also how we can predict some of that readiness moving forward as well. So those are the two forms, that one that the families will complete, the parent information form, and one that the teacher will complete. I will pause for just a moment to see if there are questions about those components before we look at what does it look like with the results.
So far, there have not been questions in the chat, but if you have questions, please go ahead and put them in the chat, or feel free to unmute yourself and just ask out loud. We're happy to help support you.
I have a question. Will we get copies of these forms?
Yeah, so if you'll get a copy of the slides that I'm sharing today, and then if your program participates within the study, the pilot, we will provide everything that you need in order to implement the P-KOF. All right, so I will just move on, and then feel free to ask as we're going, because one of the important things around readiness measures is being able to have the data accessible to you so you can actually use it. So if I say that after you've given this, you can use it to inform curriculum, if you have to send it away to somebody to analyze it and send it back, you've missed a little bit of time. So one thing that we've been able to do the last 2 years is utilize the ASR's online data portal for the teachers to be able to implement or to enter their data for each child of their P-KOF, and they get instant information back. They can run their own reports by child, by domain, and then by classroom. Our administrators and directors are able to then do the same thing as well and get that information, so you can look at where are some areas that I might want to focus and build upon as we're starting. And so after the teachers have implemented the P-KOF in the classroom and entered the data, they have the ability to gather reports. And so the individual reports can look at each child based on the average score across the 5 domains and the readiness. Here's what I want to say. This is a new ad that ASR did in response to Missouri's interest in having the KOF being a part of the readiness tool in the fall in their kindergarten classrooms. We always emphasize with our pre-K teachers that it's not expected that all children would present ready for kindergarten in the fall when they come in. That is an unreasonable expectation. What we're looking at is what are the skills that they do have, and then what growth are we seeing over time. And so this is an example of an individual report for a child that then would say by domain their readiness level. I encourage in the fall that we just look at those the various items and look at where do they fall. We've had a lot of conversation recently about rhyming words and when does that come in, because that is one that we typically see as an area noted as not ready or falling into that realm of the gradations. And so we can look at by the child, we can look at it by the classroom. So you can get a raw score. Now this is like a large group of children, so you can see how many we have at the different levels of the not yet, the beginning, the in progress, the proficient, and the not observed. The not observed is helpful to look at in the fall, because then we can look at, is it because we haven't given the opportunities to observe that skill, or is it because we just aren't seeing them perform that as well. You can also look at the average scores across classrooms. So it looks similar to what we saw for the individual child, but then it shows you as a whole. And so you can, start out at a higher level and then you can drill down. If you're a program director, you can start at the program level, move to classroom, and then move to child as well. And I want to emphasize this is instantaneous. As soon as that information is in it, you push a button for which report you want and it generates that for you as well. You can also look at the percent of proficiency at each level. So as we're looking across, you can look at it in one one shot of where we are, and we want to be seeing more of that yellow and green as they're moving through the programs. And then we're also going to be able to see percent ready by domain. And so you can see with this data, you have 60% in the physical, 50, 55, 53, 40, et cetera, in each of those domains. And so then if we're doing a pre-post, we can look to see, do we have some growth within that as well. All right, so those are the reports you get. I will say that the parent information form takes a little bit longer to get that feedback to the programs, just because it's a little bit of a different methodology around entry. If you have all your parents doing it through SurveyMonkey, it's a little bit faster. If we're doing paper and SurveyMonkey, it takes just a little bit longer. And if you only do paper, it takes even longer yet. And mostly that's because we don't like to put that on the teachers to enter for a couple of reasons. One is there may be some things that the families are sharing on that form that not necessarily don't want to share with the teacher as an individual, but also it just takes a while to get through those. Some strategies that we've seen with the parent information form is that at back to school night, having tablets out or computers available and letting families do it there. It's also really responsive to a cell phone. And so families that maybe have a cell phone and a plan that accommodates that, they could fill it out there, but paper is always available. For the parent information form, we do have it in Spanish. I should have said that earlier. That is the one other language we have now. We're collecting data on other languages spoken, so we know what other languages are the most needed and utilized within our program, so that we can be more responsive as we move forward within this. So those are really those key components of what we're doing within this study. And they sent out, I believe earlier you've seen this, how do you participate? There's a lot on here, but it's on the website as well. But it gives you the catchment area. So you're in St. Louis City or County, you provide pre-K to 3 to 5 year olds. Your teachers and your administrator will come to a 1.5 hour virtual training that I will be leading, that will get into the nitty gritty of the administration and we'll practice looking at information and making ratings based on this, the score sheets. You'll conduct a P-KOF pretest by October of 2021. A post test in May, and then you'll have a data share agreement so that we can utilize the information to generate a report for the community around readiness indicators and opportunities to leverage systems to enhance readiness. So those are the eligibility, and then you can see that in order to participate, if you're interested, you're going to submit just a simple 1-page response by the 1st. So you still have a couple weeks, why you're interested in participating, and then the key organization information as well, so that we have that moving forward. Hopefully I didn't go too fast. I can only see a few of you, so I sort of rely on a couple of you that I can see to know, like, are they? So, but I am going to stop share for a moment so that if there are questions,
they can see me.
I can see you.
Hi, Giovanna. We did have one question. Someone asked, they're located in Columbia. Are we eligible? For this particular conversation that we're having today, this is St. Louis City County and St. Louis County, but I don't know. Are there other opportunities around the state for folks that may be outside of the St. Louis region?
Yeah, I will say that if you have an interest, maybe instead of reaching out to Lisa and her team, maybe you can reach out to me specifically and we can figure that out. I'm always for, it's really, and smiling, I'm always for the more the merrier. It quite honestly is, it's really great. And I think that if we can get more feedback on the tool and the implications, I think it would be really great. So I will say that when they send out the email to the individuals that are here, my contact information is in there on the slide. And so you can just reach out to me.
Thanks for that question. Are there other questions that folks have?
All right, so just to sort of pitch out there, why would I want to participate? One thing is that we have been really working towards that shared measure or shared definition of readiness. And I think the more that we can be engaged in that conversation of what readiness means, the better. And the more information we can have about how to then present that information is helpful. Also, I think, we are really able to support the state as they're looking at a kindergarten entry assessment. We are fortunate that we were already doing some work here in the Kansas City area and just recently in St. Louis to find a tool that was simplistic, yet gave the information that teachers have told us they wanted. And I think the more that we're able to align with that, what's happening in the K-12 world, it will help us to continue to push up some of the ways that we like to do pieces. The other thing that we've been sort of walking through in our Head Start program, MARC is also a Head Start grantee for 3 of our counties. And we don't have a site, we don't have our own programs. We partner with 17 programs. And that conversation that we have is that connection between pre-K and 12 and how to help that transition and have that shared language. And what we have found is that when we give those kindergarten teachers the DRDP results, because we use DRDP, they don't look at it. But when we give them this one pager of that information, they will take it and digest it and utilize it. And so we're talking here locally about how we can use it as a transition tool as well, because our teachers that are implementing DRDP in their classrooms, we have a crosswalk of how the items on the P-KOF align with DRDP to show that and helps with that component as well. It's also, this is no cost to you all. The only cost with this is the time of your teachers. And I neglected to say that we do offer to the programs and the families, they receive a book as an incentive to fill out the parent information form. So there is a little something that's there as well. And I think the more that we're able to have shared initiatives across the state, the more we can sort of push towards the center some of the work that we see. And I know that, I've always told Ann, my vision is that someday we'll have a KC group and a St. Louis group and a Greene County group and a North group that is sort of always coming together to sort of push towards making sure we're having discussions that help to support children and families and programs within our state. So, it's an opportunity for us to get feedback from other programs as to, is it meeting the needs of what you all are looking at when it comes to readiness as well.
Hi, I have a question, Mary Doyle. I noticed on the slide that you had some areas that said ready and some that said not ready. So how are you making that determination? Does a child have to be proficient in that area to be ready, or is there a percentage of skills?
Yeah, so in each of those domains, the state has made the determination they're going to look at the 5 domains, and then they're going to look at within that domain, do they average over a 3.25 on that 1 to 4 scale? So you don't have to have a 4, but your average across. Then you have partially ready, and then not ready. And the distinction between how we look at it now and what the state is doing is just a yes. The state is doing a yes, no. You're either fully ready or not. We look at it as fully, partially, and not ready in that area.
Okay, so are you getting any pushback from kindergarten teachers if they're looking at this and the child is rating not ready and we are wanting to put them in kindergarten?
We haven't had that happen.
Okay.
No. And really, and that's the things that we're looking at is how do you share the information in the way
Right.
that it doesn't it's not used to place children. A child is truly, if we were just to do an altruistic definition of readiness, as if they meet the age cutoff, right?
Correct.
What I say to my counterparts that don't like any assessments at all is we have to get ahead of the game a little bit and find a tool that we can agree upon that will help with that as we're having those discussions. But your point of, are we using it to redshirt is important.
Right. Do you anticipate that will be in the future, that there will be the recommendation that the child does not attend kindergarten?
No,
Okay.
I have not heard that at all. And quite honestly, we won't let it go to that piece.
Okay, good. All right, thank you.
Great questions. We had a couple more in the chat. Is there a max on the number of sites that we're looking for? And does it matter if it's a combination of independent childcare programs, Head Starts, etc.?
Nope. Note about there's no max. We'll take what you would like to have join us. And it does not matter if you, even in one site, if you have Head Start and parent pay and subsidy all in one, that's perfectly fine. Or if it's just a Head Start, it doesn't matter. There's a place on the form that asks what type of program are you? And so we are able to look at that as well.
And I'll just jump in and say that part of the goal is to really get a snapshot of where all kids in the St. Louis region are. And so those St. Louis children are in a variety of settings. So the more diverse group of initial providers that we can have in this cohort, the better. So, everyone is definitely welcome.
I agree with that so much, Anne. And I think the other really beautiful piece is just the timing of all of this as an opportunity to figure out that snapshot and what do our kiddos need to be more successful, and how we can invest in them better is so aligned with the move of the St. Louis area regional hub, as well as the other regional hubs across the state, and how we can utilize some of this information to make recommendations to DESE and the Office of Childhood on how we can really make sure that our kiddos have what they need. And your information and your insight is so critical to be able to share that information with the state. All right, we've had a few questions. Are there any other questions that folks have?
Giovanna, can you just give or Bridget, if you could just give a quick overview of next steps and if people are interested, what they need to do specifically, just a quick reminder at the end of the call, I think that would be helpful.
Yeah. Bridget, do you want to talk about the submission?
Absolutely. So the link is here in the chat. I know it's buried, so it'll also come out in the follow-up email, just the information on our site. But essentially, if you are interested in taking the next steps, we just need that one pager to be sent over. You can email me directly. And again, that information is on the website and it will be included in the link. And we just need some information about your program as well as why you're interested in this program. So once that's completed, then we will reach out to you for further instructions after that.
We also had excuse me, a question in the chat. Someone asked when you will receive the follow-up email that has this information, and Megan let us know that it will be going out right around the end of the day today. So later today or first thing tomorrow, it should be hopefully at the top of your inbox.
Well, I definitely appreciate your time and your interest, and I'm hopeful that we'll get to partner on this. And we will, I think also after we have an idea of how many programs have an interest, we will send out information around what is the best dates and times to do the training with the teachers as well. And I will work on, and this is something I need, seeing if we can't get it as an open training as well, so that there can be training clock hours associated with that. That might be another opportunity. So I will look to see what we have left on our end to get that done to help with that.
Thanks, Giovanna. That's always a great benefit and a great support to all of our educators to be able to get those hours. Oh yeah, Tina, go ahead, please.
Yes, on the information that you're requesting, you asked for the students' demographics. Are you asking for the zip codes of the pre-K students? What are you looking for?
Did you all have something in particular? I think numbers, ages, if you have race, ethnicity. Do you all want zip codes as well?
No, I mean, when I want to make sure that I'm clear, Tina, are you meaning on the RFP to complete, or do you mean on the actual
On the RFP,
observation on the RFP? Okay,
the one-page information to send to Bridget. The last question you're asking for, you asked for the student demographics. You asked for the number of pre-K students served, and then you asked for the students' demographics.
Yes, so we are really just looking at those general things of making sure it's the right age range, about the number of kiddos within those age ranges. We don't need to have a zip code for that information. We want this to be simple. We don't want you to have to go too deep into that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're so welcome. I was looking at the upper part of the application and I'm like, Tina, I'm not seeing this. Where is it? But I scrolled down and sure enough. Good question. Anything else from folks?
Can we can we share this on social media? And is there anything we particularly should tag? You know what I'm saying?
That is a great question for Megan. She does our marketing and communications at U4C. And so I think she may have some good ideas there. Megan, what do you think?
There we go. Are you asking about sharing just this as an opportunity for others to participate in?
Yeah, just the RFP process.
Yeah. We have been mainly sharing just about this info session today in relation to it. And we have a lot of social going out between now and kind of that August 1 deadline as well. So feel free to hit share on our posts. That'll have the link to this information on our site in them. And also feel free to just grab the link yourself and share it directly if you'd like.
And I always think it's beautiful to tag and say thanks to folks. So to like Giovanna at MARC and things like that, and Anne, who has been another really key player in all of this. I always think those things are super special. All right, what else, everybody? All right, well, if there are no more questions, I just want to say a big thank you to Giovanna and to Anne again for their support in this process and helping this come to the St. Louis area. Feel free to reach out. Megan is sending out the email at the end of the day today to Giovanna, especially if you're not in the St. Louis region. But I'm sure she'd appreciate questions from anybody. And then also specifically for Bridget or myself, and we'll go ahead and put our emails in the chat so you have that just at a quick glance also. And you can let us know if you have questions as you're filling this out, or if you are wanting some supports. Bridget and I are happy to help you out. So thanks for coming today and giving us your lunch time. And we hope that you all have a wonderful rest of your afternoon.
Thank
Thank you for the opportunity. Bye, everyone.
As folks are hopping off, I'm going to go ahead and push stop recording, but I also will be connecting with Megan to get the recording available on our website or whatever kind of social media space that is going to be a good plan for. So I'm going to stop recording now.